All right, we're back.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Launchpad TV,
And
Lifestyle Business here in
Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina, the new temporary studio. We'll be back in California soon. I'm Chris.
And I'm Ann, and this is Lifestyle Business. And today we are delighted to welcome a longtime friend, Marcus Whitney. He is one of the main reasons why we are in our Nashville location in East Nashville, and he's our neighbor. And if you want to learn how to move past your entrepreneurial fears and find your path to claiming your creative power, there is no better expert than Marcus to help you find your way. So Jay, stay tuned. But first, everyone catch the debate on Tuesday.
Yeah, we're going to do some debate talk.
It was interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, the debate just capped off a multi-week experience. I mean, I'm wondering if there's going to be a few less Trump flags, maybe not less Trump voters, but maybe less Trump flags out. I mean, he was literally a schoolyard bully.
He was indeed. Yeah.
But we are not here to talk just about the debate.
We could talk all day.
We could talk all
that's
day.
Not what the show is about.
It's not about that. It's not about politics. It's about people coming together, communities, diverse communities focused on exciting things. Just a second. I'm getting a production note.
Oh.
Don't hit the desk is what it was. I mean, it could have.
If everybody sees the camera going like this,
it might have been easier to have just said, I think maybe just okay. Sorry. This is going great.
Yeah.
But
all right, you got a story to tell.
We had a story to tell. Something obviously, lots of conversations happening online and in real life around the debates, and just what a crazy town that was. But it's been interesting over the last few weeks. We've been having lots of conversations around politics and people with different perspectives. And I think one of the key things is something that Marcus is going to talk about is, it's really about exposure and access, right? And so at the end of the day, what we see, what we learn, what we're exposed to, who we're inspired by, those are all huge factors in that entrepreneurial journey, and in any of the journeys that we are in, right? And whether it's discovering a great dish or figuring out who you're going to vote for.
Yep.
We had an interesting conversation with actually an undecided voter, which I think is...
There's still some of those.
There's still some undecided voters, which means, I'm sorry, I'm shaking the table. With an undecided voter who I think is leading Biden, but I can't actually speak. I don't really know. I just like to believe. But his comment was, he was talking to his sons and he said to them, well, who would you vote for? And don't think about who I vote for. Don't think about who mom votes for, who your grandfather or your grandmother or your friends. Just based on the information that you have, who would you vote for? And I thought that was a really great way to start conversations, because so often people now are so stuck in their ways and so polarized in their viewpoint that they actually can't kind of come together. So I thought it was a very open-minded way of approaching politics. Didn't you?
Yeah, I thought so.
It also kind of reminded me of the importance of exposure and what you are exposed to, because both his kids said, I'm seeing more ads attacking Biden, and therefore I guess I'd vote for Trump. And of course I fell over into the ocean and was like, what? But that's exactly right, which is if you're being fed information, that information is going to color your perspective. And we all think people know that ads are paid for by politicians, and if you have more money, then you can have more ads. And if you're in a place that is in competition, it might be part of their strategy to fuel you with ads.
Yeah.
And so these kids were being exposed to ads. And those ads then colored the decision that they were going to make. Well, they're not going to make it for a while. But anyway, it then started a conversation around how do you get exposed and access to other pieces of information so that you can be informed when you decide to make that critical civic duty of voting. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
I also thought it was interesting, just that idea of how we take for granted, especially when we don't get served ads a lot, that people can see that ads are just, like a poster attacking the other person. They don't see them necessarily. They see them sometimes as information. And then, we were having that launched into the conversation around sort of like information online and what's happening. And interestingly enough, just because I'm on this, I was having a conversation with someone else who was saying that they had heard and believed strongly that Joe Biden has dementia. And so therefore he's probably going to die or not be in office, which from my perspective is inaccurate. And certainly there's no evidence to suggest that Joe has dementia. But he kept pointing out that the way Joe spoke, because he's not always the smoothest talker. Sometimes the way Joe spoke suggested that he has dementia. And I was like, fake. I wanted to yell fake news, but then I was like, that's not helpful. And then what I learned today, which I thought was really interesting, and I don't know if you knew this, but Joe overcame a stutter. And so basically in the prep work leading into the debate, to get someone to sort of get off their game when they're managing overcoming a stutter, as well as in a debate, high stress environment, attacks and interruptions are exactly the things to get you off your thing. And so I was like, it was very exciting for me because I wish I'd had that information at my fingertip and been exposed to that previously, because that debate that I had with that individual might have gone smoother had I been able to say, no, it's not dementia. It's actually his lifelong stutter. And so we should probably not bully him through that process. So that would be one of the things.
And there's a remarkable ad that he put out about his stutter and helping another young man overcome his stutter during the campaign.
I did see that.
Anyway,
so
they probably didn't see it because it was a positive ad.
Dana's kids did not see that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we get to Marcus, do you want to talk the other thing we were going to chat about today?
Yeah, we were going to talk OZs. We've talked about opportunity zones a number of times. We've got an interesting, conundrum. We've been opportunity zone supporters. We just got a tax bill. We're paying more for our opportunity fund than Trump paid in taxes in 16, 17. So, but anyway, I think the point was that I think we really believe in it, and we've been big supporters of it. But these are things that are complex, and
early days.
It's early days in the program. And I think the lesson for us in this has been, as much as we understand and have navigated it well and have professionals, highly paid accountants that have been trying to help us navigate it. We're still getting hit with penalties. And I guess as much as we've had a couple roundtables with Launchpad members and folks about trying to use them, I think it requires further education. I wouldn't say not ready for prime time, but I don't know. We were surprised and a little bit frustrated with the tax hit, and anything like that. I think it is early days, and we can help to continue to lead and help them get better for the next push, because we need all the tools we can get for entrepreneurs who are raising capital, and the intention has been really good behind them. But sometimes, like other programs like this, if there's too much complexity there, the bar is too high. It only works on a multi-million-dollar project, so that the real estate developers can hire the really good accountants and get it right, and that makes it hard for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I think therein lies the opportunity.
Yeah,
which is, I personally enjoyed it when our very senior accountant was like, I mean, this one's a new case study. We haven't come across this yet. So I guess we're going to have to figure it out. As his associate was like, according to page 70,000 of the Opportunity Zone legislation, we might be able to get around it. So everybody's learning and trying to figure it out. I think the reality is, just to be frank, and what we've said is, I don't think it's a great tool right now for the goal that it had. And the goal was to help bring capital into opportunity zones, to be able to support entrepreneurship and the creating of a thriving environment. And what I would say is, unless you are very sophisticated, raising for a very different thing, it's not bringing lots of new capital types. It's not bringing lots of new types of investors. And it's probably not really well designed for, the small business, the entrepreneur who's hanging its shingle, but even venture scale companies. So I think we'll see how time goes. But within that, there is an opportunity. I think people at least are shining a light on these zones and shining a light on the importance of that. And we'll get there too. All right. So before we're going to bring you up, Marcus, we're going to be talking to Marcus a little bit about his book and some of his amazing career. And one of the themes that gets highlighted a lot is access and exposure and how that can do it. I can tell you right now, I'm personally lacking exposure to other entrepreneurs. I'm down here at the beach in North Carolina. I missed that part because we're evacuated from the fires. And I feel like I've become a retiree. So I don't know how to tap into it myself. But I'm looking forward to getting back into the world where
into our co-working space, right?
Into our co-working space where people are hustling, because you do get that inspiration and you get new ideas, and more importantly, you get access and exposure. And it's a theme that I've talked about a lot, and so I'm really excited to dig in with you. And why don't you do the intro for us, Chris?
Okay, and so joining us is Marcus Whitney, our good friend. And a big part of the reason that we're in Nashville. He went from being a college dropout without a place to call home to one of Nashville's most exciting entrepreneurs. Along the way, he became a self-taught software engineer, an Amazon best-selling author, a TEDx public speaker, and co-founder and co-owner of the most active healthcare VC in the country. He also, not in the bio, but we want to touch on this, is a co-owner of a professional sports franchise in Nashville. Today, he's here to tell us his amazing story, share some valuable insights, and help you make your dreams into a reality. Welcome, Marcus.
Hey, thanks for having me here, Chris and Ann. Appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome to get to see you and have you on the show. Let's jump in and talk about your book. I just enjoyed reading your book this summer. I think you sent an advance copy, but got some questions about it. But tell us a little bit about Create and Orchestrate.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, I was a college dropout. I never took official business classes. I didn't have any formal education in business. And so I, like many of the entrepreneurs that you all serve, at Launchpad, basically learned on my own, learned through doing. And that's a great way to get real lessons. It also is a hard way to learn. I was like laughing at everything you were talking about with opportunity zones. It's like, that's the stuff, right? It's like you all can write a book, that that everyone can, save a bunch of tax money on from it. And so I ran into so many walls, throughout my journey of, the first time I was involved in a venture-backed startup, and the first time I, had to go to a board meeting and present, or all the firsts. I really wrote the book that I wish I had had 10 years ago when I got serious about being an entrepreneur. That would have saved me a bunch of money, saved me a bunch of heartache. And so that is the book. It covers the last 20 years of my life. So it does sort of start with me as the college dropout moving to Nashville, not knowing anyone, how I developed the first set of skills that was that made me into a knowledge worker professional for me, that was web development. How I got into a startup, and that exposed me to the world of entrepreneurship and leadership. And then launching out on my own in 2007, and my entire entrepreneurial journey that has covered a variety of different industries, obviously marketing, technology, but also healthcare, pro sports, and venture capital. So that's the book. And yeah, I'm happy it's done and ready to get it out to the world.
Yeah. You're happy it's done. I bet that's consumed a lot of your last few months or years. What was your process?
So it took 5 years. It took 5 years to write. And I would say the first 3 years were me figuring out just how far I had to go to become an author. Some people like sit down and say, okay, they're gonna write a book, and they like knock it out in a matter of months. And either those are people who are incredibly skilled as writers, or they are people who don't really care that much about the end product. I wrote probably 100,000 words and threw away most of them because I would go back through and read it and be like, this is garbage, and I knew it was going to be my first book, but I really do care about the people who read this book, especially aspiring and first-time entrepreneurs. And so I wanted it to be a good book. I wanted it to be a book that would actually engage them, where the concepts were accessible, where it was comprehensive. So it wouldn't like tell them every single thing they need to know, but like 80% of it, I wanted it to be in this book. And that took a while. It took a while for me to understand how to become a good writer. And so that was probably 3 years of it. And then at about the 3-year mark, I then realized, oh, there's still some things I don't quite know. There's still some experiences that I'm in the middle of right now that, specifically like the pro sports stuff. And we had just raised our first Series A fund. And, I was learning some things about venture capital for the first time that I wasn't fully clear on. And so there were some experiences that I had yet to fully live into and live through. And so I did a lot of like newsletter writing and blog posting and stuff like that while I was developing that body of experience. And then I finished writing the book December of 2019. And then it took me from January of 2020 until June to actually get the book out. I self-published. I worked with a company called Scribe Media, which, in 2020, if you can get a book publisher, that's awesome. But like for me, I just think that I spent so much time and so much energy writing this book, and so much of my intellectual property is in this book. Like the idea of signing over the rights to it is absolutely crazy. And so, self-publishing is an amazing option that just wasn't even reasonable 20 years ago. And now it's the internet and technology has really empowered people to do that. But it is still really difficult to do that and get it out to the world. This book cover, right? Like you need like professional, well, I got the light kind of, but you need like professional book cover designers, not like web designers. You need book cover designers to do your book cover, and you need real editors, and you need people who know the distribution process and the chains and how to work with Amazon and all that kind of crazy stuff. And so Scribe was incredible for that entire process. I loved working with them. And there are other firms out there, but I worked with them and it was great. It was worth it. And so, yeah, that took 6 months of working with them to get my manuscript into a book and getting a marketing campaign together. And it was great. We had a great launch. It was an Amazon bestseller. One thing I'll say about that was I had spent the last 5 years also building an audience, not a massive audience, but certainly several thousands of people that when it was time to launch, I could activate those people. And I've talked to people who they write a book and they haven't built the audience first. And I won't say that that's a bad path to go on, but it's hard to get the bestseller if you don't already have the audience. It's like, you got to have your own people, your own legion kind of, they're ready to support you when you do the drop. So.
Right on. Cool.
Interesting.
Good insight.
Interesting that Anne's asking specifically about the process. We We've been thinking about it ourselves a little bit.
I do, though, imagine that. I think it's interesting, as you say, that it's a 5-year journey. It's like two things, right? Which is, one, you're constantly changing over that time. I imagine the ideas evolved too, in terms of what you were actually writing about. And then 3, I mean, at the end of the day, like, the good news is you probably got better as an entrepreneur through the process, because you're, actually processing and thinking about those moments and those inflection points that shape your career, right? So then all of a sudden now you're naturally reshaping it. But the discipline really is challenging.
Yes to everything you just said, right? So like now that the book is done, I look at it and I'm like, I don't know what made me think I could have written this book 5 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, it could not have possibly been done until right now. This is there's no way. But whatever that thing is that sort of drives you to want to write the book is the inkling that, and I am a believer that most people should write a book. There's nothing like writing for clarifying your thoughts, and for getting you to really think through what you believe in, what you would believe in, that you would be willing to put into print, and as you said, we're always changing, right? So what would you be willing to put into print and put out in the world that's not editable? It's not like a wiki, you know what I mean? That like you can update. It's when it's in people's hands, that's in perpetuity, right? You can always write part 2 of the book, but you have to be good with what's out, with what's out there in the world. And so it makes you be thoughtful, I think, about the words you select. So it's a great process. It's a great process.
Great. Yeah. The comment that I hear a lot is sort of the find your truth, the speak your truth. It really has to be so personal. It has to be your own experience. And like you said, that goes down on paper for perpetuity. You talk in the book a little bit about entrepreneurship as the great equalizer. And I love this concept because it's sort of it's open to anyone, and it's the way, a proven way to get ahead. There's other ways to get ahead, but it's a really powerful way to get ahead in life. One of the things we talk about is entrepreneurship is a great way to create agency in your life, sort of freedom, living life on your own terms, particularly through this pandemic. And, as we all understand how work is changing, this is a way to live life on your own terms. What I loved about the book is the sort of the practical nature of it, how you make things actionable, sort of the how-to, you even have the call outs. So when you first meet an entrepreneur, and you and I probably meet a lot, and meets a lot of folks who are like, I want to start a company. What do you tell people as a starting point?
Yeah. Well, one of the things is I try to meet them where they are, right? You know what I mean? And different people are in different places. I love what you said about entrepreneurship being a path to agency. And I think you got to think, okay, well, why does somebody need agency? And it's because we're all unique, in our own ways, and we're going to live the best expression of our life when we are in control of that which we ought to be in control of, with regards to our life. Like, obviously, we live in a country, we live in counties and cities and states, and we have to kind of collaborate on some of these bigger things that we as a community need. But there's this whole, huge locus of control that you as an individual, in terms of what you're going to bring to the world. And you need to have the agency to do that. And quite frankly, in a capitalist society, there is no other way to have full agency than entrepreneurship. Like, it's pretty binary. Either you work for somebody else and your agency is limited to the scope of that role, or you're an entrepreneur and you have full agency. That's it, right? So that to me is the number one reason to be an entrepreneur. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is to have the full range of the expression of who you are in terms of how you can bring value to the world in a capitalist world, where that's the that's the mode of the world. In terms of like what I would tell an entrepreneur, again, meeting them where they are, I tried to break down the book into two general areas. The spine of the book, dead in the center, is a 2-chapter section called the 8 core concepts. And that is a framework that I basically reverse engineered, having never been properly trained in business, for what are the fundamental concepts that every single entrepreneur, I don't care what industry they're in, need to know. So, I'm 100% certain that these 8 concepts are universally present in business, right? And it's leadership, finance, operations, growth, product, service, sales, and marketing. Mm-hmm. Those concepts are present in every single business. I don't care what industry, I don't care what jurisdiction you're in. They're there, and you have to know them. And there are some fundamental axioms, some fundamental truths about those things that actually kind of allow us to all work together. You know what I mean? Right. And like allow businesses to work with the, with the state bodies, and allow us to work with our service providers, and allow us to work with our employees, and allow us to serve our customers. There's some social contracts in there, right, and they're aligned essentially around those 8 concepts. So that's the spine of the book, and this is the part that you get to personalize, but you don't get to bypass. And the rest of it was all like, here are lessons that I learned that have now become principles for the way that I think about business and the way that I approach business, that were quite frankly kind of counterintuitive. Things about partnership, and how difficult partnership can be.
Try being married to them.
I can't even, right? You know what I mean? Things about how you interact with the media, right? And that's always like a really big thing. There's always these pitch contests, or these 40 under 40, or these awards, or all this other kind of stuff. And it's like, how do you actually interact with the media? How do you put that in the right perspective? Things like, how do you work on things much bigger than you? So I have a whole chapter about that, about orchestration. How do you frame what you're doing in entrepreneurship? Is it all about this one business, or is entrepreneurship a career or a journey for you? I know you both know you've done so many things over the course of, your entrepreneurial careers, and they're all just leading to whatever you're going to do tomorrow, right? You know what I mean? So just trying to frame that up for people, that whatever goal you have in front of you is like, I have a chapter about that called "The Peak is Not the Peak." And it's just like, whatever goal you're going after, you're going to enjoy it for all of 15 minutes. You know what I mean? And then it's going to be the next thing, right? So just frame these things up that the uninitiated, you just don't know until you get in there and you start to kind of do it, right? Right.
Do you have a question? All right. I've got more.
He's got a lot of questions.
I've got plenty for you.
I got told that I needed to let him ask the questions.
You got the intro. All right. So Anna and I talk a lot about the startup industrial complex, and this is sort of what a lot of people think of, right? It's sort of this media around entrepreneurship, getting on the cover of Forbes magazine, VC Twitter.
Not necessarily a good.
Not necessarily
good thing.
Right. Not always, but Silicon Valley, mythology, a lot of, we talk a lot about, great businesses can be built anywhere. You don't have to go to, Y Combinator in Silicon Valley and Stanford. But part of this is, a lot of that also is, you're generally coming, if you're getting into that world, you're often coming into that world from a position of privilege, right? You went to Stanford to begin with, and what I found really inspiring about your book is, it's very sort of, consumable for anyone, and it casts a wide net. And I think that is, that's probably one of the most important things that I know you care about and we care about is, access to this path, right? To this journey. all around the agency, because in the world that we're in, and less job security and less, this is a way to create a path for yourself. So, talk to me about who you want this book to reach and how you're sort of building your audience, because I think you're doing a really nice job of opening up the access to entrepreneurship and how you come into this.
Thanks. In the very first chapter, I try to make the case for the book, and that case is that entrepreneurship is replacing education as the great equalizer, right? So it was really sort of the narrative of the 20th century that education was the great equalizer. That was,
Mm-hmm.
A famous quote from Horace Mann, and that was true. But what's really important is to be able to track evolutions in our economy, right? And education was an equalizer because the economy was designed around it, right? The economy was designed around the matriculation of people through higher education to be trained in very specific things to fit into, spots held for them in the economy.
Right.
And what's really interesting about the startup industrial complex that you talked about is it is so true. There's so much distraction in it. And at the very same time, it has changed the world, right? And both things are true. Both things are true. You have to be really, really careful to not get caught up in the distractions of it. And at the same time, don't be so dismissive of it that you don't respect how powerful it is. Right. In 2007, which is a pretty important year for me on a bunch of fronts. When I left Emma Email Marketing as a technologist to become an entrepreneur, the real catalyst, beyond just this feeling in me that I wanted to go out on my own, the real catalyst for me was that I attended South by Southwest in 2007. And that was before South by Southwest had tens of thousands of people. There were probably less than 2,000 people there. Okay, but that group of people, it was Gary Vaynerchuk, Mark Zuckerberg, Matt Mullenweg, Baratunde Thurston, Chris Brogan. It was the people, right?
Yeah.
There, and but nobody was that big a deal yet. Okay. Why? Because it was 2007, which is only 13 years ago.
That's right.
But Twitter basically launched at that event. And the iPhone came out 4 months later. Right? And cloud computing wasn't a thing yet. 13 years ago.
Yeah.
Those three things run the world today. Twitter, the iPhone, and cloud computing run the world 13 years later.
That's right.
And so it's like I want people to have the language to be able to jump into this conversation, because the beautiful thing about this conversation is you don't have to have Stanford credentials for it, right? And thank God we have a yes, there is a very powerful, consolidated startup industrial complex that lives primarily in Silicon Valley and then has other satellites in Silicon Alley and Silicon Beach, right? But thank God we have Launchpad and Rise of the Rest and entrepreneur centers all over the country and micro VCs and now rolling funds. And, thank God we have distribution and diffusion of this thing, helping to get it out to other people, and then broadband access, right?
Right.
We can do live television shows and have these conversations, and it's great for other people, but it's also great for you and I to catch up and get the spark going that we wouldn't normally be able to have. And so,
right.
So I think you have to thread the needle with it, right? I think you have to thread the needle. I think it is very, very worrisome when I see. Because I was that entrepreneur, okay, right? When I see people wanting to do exactly what they see happening out in Silicon Valley, I'm just like, that's not what you need to do.
Right.
Super cute dog. But at the same time, I do want them to tune in and watch and learn and see, are there opportunities in the evolution that these really densely populated areas of innovation and disruption, what they're doing, are there waves that they can ride, if that makes sense?
Yes.
That they realistically can ride, not like that they can't ride because you can't raise the money that they can get, you know what I mean? But are there things that are happening that you could really take advantage of?
And I think that's very fair. And I think the other interesting side is that, like, in early adoption phases, right, we saw tectonic shifts that happened so fast, and it was transformative in terms of big tech infrastructure that then made possible what I would call sort of like that this next wave around, you don't need to be solving the most complex tech problems to be doing amazing, interesting, inspiring, competitively changing businesses. And so where we saw big tech start, and then all of a sudden you have these industries that are all ripe for innovation and change. I mean, healthcare is a perfect example, and they will move at a pace that is different than frontline technology. And what I would say is that, from someone who was in the Valley for 20 years, and now basically I'm a retiree out here at the beach now. And so I just do loops every day. But, one of the things that had at a certain time was it housed the nexus, certainly of power, but of ideas, right? And then they spawn ideas. And as also someone who has worked for many companies who have gone out of business, and, have spent hundreds of millions of dollars, for the privilege of doing that, you look at it, those are the bad sides of it, but it sparked the movement. And then what happened, and this is very natural too, is that now no longer, I think Silicon Valley doesn't always have to be the nexus. I think what it's, 10 years, 15 years later, we're starting to see that education, that need to move to another lifestyle city, that access point, that those experiences, now the bar has been raised for everyone and everyone's seeking that new bar, right? And so I think that's really exciting. It's like, I like the way you're saying we want to incite and inspire people in cities all across the country and give those opportunities of access to entrepreneurship everywhere. And you don't have to be in the Valley anymore. But I think looking back and saying, wow, like that was the sort of thing and energy that we needed to change industries. And you're exactly right. When I first started doing technology products, we had to have physical servers in every individual retailer that was and then 100% uptime failover. So it was like, you wanted to buy a piece of little software and then you had to host it for $2 million, right? And you're like, that's just stupid. And then I remember sort of 5 years later that the reality is all enterprise technology it wasn't better. It just meant that you actually had lawyers draft a custom contract for the same damn piece of technology, right? And then you have, so we've just seen these massive shifts, which is so cool. And it just means that the environment now, even more than 5 years ago when you started writing the book, right? The environment now is actually just so much more prepared for entrepreneurship to actually thrive. You don't have to do what was traditionally an entrepreneur's activity. Now there's just so many things you can do. And in fact, coronavirus has helped us realize that we can do that from wherever. And that's going to be a very powerful shaping tool in a positive way for us as we go forward.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was that head of technology at a company that, thought I was getting in the software business and found out I was really in the data server business, and, constantly installing blades and naming every server I had. And you know what I mean? All these ridiculous things. I actually would be interested in asking you both this question, as catalysts for entrepreneurs through Launchpad and, across the country. I talked about 2007 and those events that lined up that really have sort of laid the infrastructure for what the world has become today.
Yeah.
I am getting the feeling in 2020, and I know part of it is pandemic has shifted everything, but there are some waves that I can talk about, and they won't sound as intense as the things we just talked about, but there are some waves of innovation that feel like they have the same absolute disruptive potential that are coming, that have hit this year, that I have not felt since 2007. And I'm just wondering, like, do you, so like things like how far no code has come?
Yeah.
Like no code was something we talked about, but it is full on real now, and as a VC, that fundamentally changes so many things. It's like it changes what I thought the makeup of a team needed to look like.
Right.
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 Like
now you're like, go to market matters more than tech stack.
Right. Exactly. Because bubble. You know what I mean? It's like,
God, I should have a job now.
It's pretty crazy though, right?
Sure.
And another one is like is like, I think we are really seeing the unraveling of media right now. I mean,
oh yeah.
Back and like, oh my God, so, and StreamYard, it just feels like this is it. It's over. You know what I mean? There's no way that a big media brand at this point, like this was the last step, was the creators needed the tools, and they needed to be so simple that there was basically zero overhead to use them. And now that we're here, it's like, I can run my own, like I can have my own Facebook ad account. I can have my own Google ad account. I can have my own affiliate marketing account. I can manage my own sponsorships. Why the heck would I need to work for some stupid brand that doesn't align with what I believe in? I can be my own media company, have a much smaller audience, make just as much money, and control my time and my schedule, and be so much happier. Like that, it feels like we're there. Like that's it.
Yeah.
Over.
I mean, I think you're absolutely right. And I think, from a, VC perspective and an investing perspective, you always, like, tools are the best thing to invest in, right? Developer tools, it's the whole, pickaxes during a gold rush thing, right?
Right.
So that's sort of the VC high growth hat. But these are tools for creators and entrepreneurs. These are tools that equip people to make a living. And I think one of the things that we're very focused on is, in fact, the name of the show is Lifestyle Business, because we want to sort of reclaim, sometimes you get the, snooty, oh, that's a lifestyle business, I look down my nose, that won't work. We sort of want to reclaim, hey, being an entrepreneur is being an entrepreneur. It's about agency. So running a lifestyle business, if you're making a living and you make a great living and you're living the way you want, where you want, doing what you want, building your audience, whether it's, media, whether it's podcasting, whether it's, a Shopify account and you're selling something cool that you're making, I think that's where we are right now. Like that is happening. And particularly, as we're, in this, pandemic and people are at home and people's routines and jobs and what they were doing before is totally being disrupted.
We're not going back.
I think, to your point about 2007, we're in a very interesting time because the people that will come out of this are the people that are laying the groundwork right now and adopting these tools, figuring out no code, doing this stuff and building their own brand, building their own audience.
Well, and I think the reality is that we've had this, I mean, this is the ongoing conversation, but access to being an entrepreneur, access to VC. We were talking about a woman who is a Launchpad member who raised $1 million. She's one of only 35 Black women in the United States who have raised more than $1 million, right?
Yeah.
Access to VC is just, the decks are stacked against everyone. It is a very, very, very tiny part of the population that's going to get access to great VCs, let alone like terrible, shitty VCs that are going to take advantage of you. So this whole notion that venture capital is like the best thing that we could ever do, and yet at the same time, a lifestyle business, access to entrepreneurship, you don't have to always be at the pinnacle to be doing something great. And it's a lot easier to give access to people through tools like no code, to be more focused on how you're actually building your audience, how you're selling your product, how you're getting in front of other people. To me, that you're right. It is this massive shift in perspective, that it's going to be the person who's the entrepreneur, who's the leader, who's the business owner, who's driving success. And lifestyle business is not the worst thing you could do. In fact, we had a VC that we were pitching, and he looked at us and he was like, I mean, why do you even want that? And I was like, because of course I want. Oh wait, maybe like,
Then you have to go out and be like WeWork.
Don't you have to be like? Don't you actually want to have impact and run really cool spaces and actually engage with the entrepreneurs and know who they are, or do you want to like worry about whether or not you're optimizing for your janitor bill?
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I mean, when I look at the future world, it feels like I wouldn't say this is true for Amazon, but I would say this is really true for Facebook, and maybe true for LinkedIn. You know, we've learned our lessons now about how these networks work, you know, and who actually accrues the value. Mm-hmm. And you know, with the exception of Twitter, you know, Twitter is the one network that still like provides more value than it takes. You know, its ad business is not that big. You know, it's Twitter is, you know, for whatever you want to say about it, it is not in the same class as Facebook. You know, you know, Facebook, you know, really we've learned a lot now. You know, we've gone through this full cycle and we sort of understand, and you know, anyone who's tried to build a business on there has a story about it. You know, I don't care if you know, this is everything from, you know, the mom and pop all the way to Zynga, right? Like they've screwed us all. You know, so it's like, you know, why would you want to do that? You know, if you're a seller, I mean, there's a reason why Shopify's market cap is what it is. You know, seemingly out of nowhere, but they've been around for over a decade, right? You know, they've been hustling and working at it, but it's like we've all realized we need our own databases, we need our own fan bases, we need our own customers, we need our own relationship, our own channels to them. We need to see the money the whole way through. We don't need these whack-ass intermediaries. And at the same time, it's impossible to do that and also write all the code.
Right.
Ming was just 10 years too early.
Totally. You know? So yeah, I mean, I think that we I think we're at the beginning. And I do think it's the beginning. I really do think it's the beginning, but I think we're at the beginning of another really incredibly disruptive wave. That I'm not sure, because of demographics, you know, specifically the millennials are really, you know, the millennials have not gotten a break. And I think, you know, between 2008, 2009, and now this, and I think they are really going to have a very different philosophy that, you know, because we've failed them. Bottom line.
Thank God they're going to save us.
Yeah, exactly. We failed them, and so they're going to save themselves. And either we're going to ride with them or not. But let me tell you, they're not going to care about saving us. You know, they're going to be like, listen, you guys have just made a complete mess of this, and so hand it over. And I'm super excited about that day. You know.
Yeah.
I think that day is coming faster than we think. I think
if only we had wrestled the keys from the olds.
Well, the optimistic case is that, you know, maybe that meltdown we saw on Tuesday night is
Not just
the beginning of the end, but whatever what they call it on CNN, the dumpster fire inside the train wreck inside. It's just like
we threw three old white dudes into a pillowcase in squirrels. We threw 3 squirrels into a pillowcase, and that's what happened. Anyway. Okay. Well, we got to get to member magic before the end of the hour. Sorry we took so much time with you, Marcus.
It was really good
to hang out.
This was a lot of fun.
Great to catch up. Great to catch up with y'all. I'm glad you're okay. I'm glad your house is okay.
Thank you.
Such crazy times on so many fronts, but I'm glad you're both healthy and doing well. And thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
you too, and everything you've been doing is so inspiring. When we post this, we'll post links to where everybody can follow you. But thanks so much for joining us today. And everybody go out and buy a copy of Create and Orchestrate by Marcus Whitney.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. And
take care, y'all.
We're about to get into, we've got 3 good stories for Member Magic today.
Okay. Bye, Marcus.
And why don't you kick us off with something out of Newark?
All right. Well, out of Newark, we're excited to welcome Yendor Productions into Launchpad Newark. Yendor is a boutique arts organization created to address the need for integrated public art in the city of Newark. And not only are we welcoming this talented member into our space, but they are going to be installing and creating a new mural in the Newark Launchpad Commons. And I was on a call with Dio and Malcolm about the art piece yesterday. So really excited to have them in. Also news out of Newark, Launchpad member Smashcut is hiring. Smashcut is a learning platform for real-time media-based education, and they're looking for a content operations manager.
All right. Good job. Out of Stockton, Launchpad Stockton member Main Street Launch, one of our favorites, has been chosen to administer the Oakland CARES Act program for small business grants. These grants are going to be a critical piece that supports Oakland's dynamic small business community. Main Street Launch, though, also was the administrator for the Stockton Business COVID Relief Program that many entrepreneurs benefited from throughout the city of Stockton. So exciting news for them as they take their program on the road to help small businesses everywhere in California and beyond. And in Nashville, AGD Entertainment hosted another successful practice pitch event this past week. AGD is an artist management group out of Nashville, and they're one of our great members in our Nashville location. And 2 artists were given the chance to pitch their work to festival directors for the Millport Country Music Festival live for feedback. You can catch up on what that was at Practice the Pitch.
That's a pretty good domain name. That's
I know, right?
They scored that. Yeah.
I mean, that is tight. Talk about the complex of startups. Would be dying for that.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, congratulations to AGD.
All right. Well, good. Well, that was a great episode. Super fun to be back here in season 3 on our Thursday slot.
We like it.
Awesome to have Marcus on the show. Really
you noticing our nautical theme again today?
You
red, white, and blue. Don't they look like little ships?
Yeah, they look like sort of Valentine's theme.
Thanks. It's Rent the Runway.
Do you get an affiliate code for that or anything?
I do have an affiliate code. If anyone's interested, I'm happy to share.
All right. Well, if you're still watching at this point, we're brought to you this week by Rent the Runway and Anne's affiliate marketing deal.
And you probably work for us.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will be back next Thursday. And thank you very much for tuning in this week. And so long, folks.
And also, thanks to our special guest star, Hazel.
All right. Take care.